Welcome to more World of Warplanes content from the Noble Queue, and in this video I'm going to take an in-depth look at the Blohm Und Voss BV-P.203, a Tier 8 premium German heavy fighter that's currently available in the shop. Hello there, and here we are on the tarmac outside my hangar looking at this big old beastie, the Blohm Und Voss BV-P.203. Purely a concept aircraft. This never made it into production, or not even into prototype as far as I'm aware. The idea being that this would be a night fighter stroke multi-role stroke fighter bomber. Incidentally, there's no bombs on this aircraft in the game, it's purely a heavy fighter. And the concept was that for low to middle speeds it would have piston engines, as you can see here, but it was also equipped with jet engines for high speed performance as well. Intended to carry heavy armament and also has a tail gunner. That is, there are 2 crew members for this aircraft. So what we'll do next is have a look at the bundles in the shop and also talk about other things. Here's the page listing the 2 bundles that are available for the BV-P.203. However, before I delve into these, of course I must address the current political situation, where the Russian state has launched a calamitous and cowardly invasion of the Ukraine, thus raising the question, should any of us be paying Wargaming any money at this time? At the time of making this video, this is my understanding of the situation. Wargaming is a Belarusian company, not a Russian one. The two are easily confused, but there is a difference. Furthermore, it's headquartered in Cyprus. This means it's not paying taxes into the Kremlin's coffers. In fact, it's probably paying little tax anywhere, which is another question for another day. However, it is clear that Belarus is one of the few countries lending Russia support at this time, and therefore it has been targeted for sanctions both by the UK and the US, and probably the EU as well. The UK is concentrating on the financial sector, the US goes a bit further and adds the defence sector to that. So far, I have not been able to find any links between Wargaming or its employees or its board and those 2 sectors. Therefore, currently I'm still streaming and playing the game and producing video content for it. However, everything is kept under constant review, and if matters change, for instance I do find links or further more extensive sanctions are applied to Belarus, then my view on what I'm doing may very well change and I may very well stop playing these games. You may take a firmer view already and have decided that you don't want to pay Wargaming any money, and that would be a valid decision in my opinion. Whatever your view, probably individually there's little we can do about the war in the Ukraine, short of travelling there and taking up arms against the Russians. However, there are inevitable consequences of war, and that is displacement of people and indeed animals, and these people and animals are going to need help. So what you're looking at here is the British Red Cross page for the Ukraine Crisis Appeal. And no doubt there will be similar pages available to you in your countries. And I invite you to consider that if you're about to purchase one of the Wargaming bundles for the BV-P.203, wouldn't it be better perhaps to donate that money instead to the Red Cross? I leave you to think about that. All that said, let's turn to the trivial matter of the bundles themselves. And there are 2. The first one, the standard bundle, contains the aircraft, a hangar slot. It says 1 crew trained to 100% here, but there are 2 crew members in the BV-P.203. I imagine there's both of them trained to 100%. And then there's a second bundle which is ready for battle, which has the aircraft, a hangar slot, then a bonus of 5,000 gold. And here are Wargaming inviting you to gamble on steel supply crates again. Well, I have a dim view about gambling within games that are PEGI rated 7. But let's not divert into that for the moment. And then you'll probably get 2 crew, again it says 1, and a decoration set. Okay, what I call a livery. Now, the prices of these bundles, let's just bring them into view. As you can see, I've listed here the British prices, the Euro price, and US dollar prices. And the first bundle, the smaller one, just the aircraft, the crew, and the hangar slot, is £38.45. Those prices are entirely in line with the planes at Tier 8 that are normally on offer in the premium shop. Nothing to see there. And then for the larger bundle, you're looking at £52.43, or that amount of euros or US dollars. So not cheap. Okay, that's enough about the shop and also the current political situation. Let's go and look at the statistics of the aircraft, and if you don't want to look at a spreadsheet, use the link below the video to skip ahead to another part of it. So here we have a spreadsheet showing all 8 of the Tier 8 heavies, and I'm going to take a moment to explain how this spreadsheet works. If you know that already, then use the link below to skip ahead to the discussion of the numbers for the aircraft themselves. In column C and D we have the BV P.203, and then each of the other heavies occupy 2 columns of their own off to the right, as you can see. Down the left we have the characteristics that you can see in the hangar UI. I've supplemented that in the case of gun armament with this information from a third-party website. For the purposes of the comparison, the configuration of the aircraft was stock in every case. Where it was available, ordnance was mounted. There isn't any ordnance on the BV P.203. Equipment was removed, a pilot sent back to the barracks, and the modules are all top. As far as colour coding is concerned, best in class is denoted by a green colour. Light blue indicates second best in class, light purple third best in class, and if there is a gold colour behind the name of the aircraft, that indicates that it's a premium or a reward aircraft. And if we scroll down, we can see using red colours, I reverse the logic for worst in class figures. Okay, so let's discuss the statistics of this plane. So let's start with the gun armament, and at first blush it doesn't look to be particularly good news. The rating is 41, which is above some of the aircraft in this comparison, but lagging quite a long way behind things like the XP-58 Chain Lightning, the ME-262, and particularly the Westland P.1056. And the cumulative DPS at 550, it's a similar story. It seems to lag behind quite several of the other heavies, including this time the P-82B Twin Mustang. So what's going on here? Well, we need to look at this quite closely. There are 3 weapons groups on the BVP.203. There are a couple of 13mm cannons, a couple of 15mm machine guns, and a couple of 13mm machine guns. And what I want to draw your eye to is the range, particularly on the 13mm, that's 3,115 feet, and the range on the 15mm, which is 2,362 feet. And if we look at the DPS figures, we can see that at 3,115 feet you can do 280 DPS, and as you get closer, 2,362 feet, you'll add in another 170 DPS. Now there's only one other aircraft that's capable of inflicting damage, or at least one other heavy in this comparison capable of inflicting damage at that kind of distance, and its DPS is quite a bit lower. And that's the Dornier 335A1 Thiel, which has a range of 3,281 feet on the 13mm cannon, a single cannon, although it is rated at 210 DPS, which is fairly healthy, and then has a couple of 15mm which can inflict damage at 2,362 feet. But still, even in a head-on against the Thiel, which can fire at similar ranges, you should come off best because you have the greater DPS. When it comes to the other aircraft, the Chain Lightning, which has in theory a much better set of armament, is limited to inflicting damage at 1,837 feet, the ME-262, 2,021 feet. Even the Westland P.1056, the major armament, the 40mm cannons, are only 2,100 feet at optimum range, although they do have 420s which will start dealing damage at 2,559 feet. The long and short of it is, provided you aim carefully, you should be able to deter heavies from coming head on at you, even when theoretically they have greater DPS, so bear that in mind. Furthermore, with this kind of range on the weaponry, you can sit behind bombers, probably without them being able to shoot you, same for ground attackers as well, and pick them off at distance, which will save your aircraft from taking unnecessary damage. And I can tell you that, certainly given the way I've set this aircraft up, there's no way that this feels like a 550 or 41 rating, 550 DPS or 41 rating aircraft. It feels much better than that. In addition to that, it also has some defensive armament, one of 2 heavies in this comparison that has it, a single 13mm machine gun, 128 DPS with a range of 2,297 feet. This is useful perhaps for getting bots off your tail, especially if you manage to shoot out their engine. When it comes to ordnance, the BVP.203, unlike several of the heavies, most of the heavies in this comparison, has none. This is purely an air superiority fighter, which is strange because in its design phase it was intended to carry ordnance, but that's not been reflected in the game. Survivability figures, it's somewhere in the middle. These figures are mostly compressed, so don't be too impressed by the fact that there's a green figure for the fire resistance. As you can see, several of the aircraft have exactly the same fire resistance, and all of the others actually only have 5 points less. Still, it's a fairly robust aircraft, provided you don't sit for ages in front of something shooting you. Airspeed, it's not sluggish, and it's not particularly fast. Again, all of the heavies tend to have the same kind of rating. The ME-262 is marginally the best, and I would strongly recommend that when you come to build this aircraft, you give serious thought to trying to improve this, particularly the maximum boost speed, but also the cruise speed. However, there is a silver lining here. This 40 seconds boost duration is best in class, and it's best in class by quite some distance. 10 seconds over the P.203 chain lightning, for instance. Provided you see the threats coming soon enough, you have the opportunity to escape by using all of your boost, provided you've been wise and have most of it left. You probably won't escape by diving. This is a fairly so-so dive figure. There are certainly heavy aircraft that can dive better. And every single other aircraft can keep up with you, with the possible exception of the Pancake, although I don't think the disparity there is enough to save you from even a Pancake if you're trying to dive away from it. When it comes to maneuverability, you're dealing with a cow. This thing does not turn. This thing does not roll. And basically, you want to try and either get behind aircraft and destroy them before they start trying to evade you, or you want to go head on with them and destroy them before they can destroy you. If we just look across, we can see, compared to something like a twin Mustang, this will run circles around you if you try and turn fight with it. And that's probably going to be true of almost any of the other aircraft if they are piloted by humans. You might get away with something like an ME-262 or a Westland P.203 if it's a bot. Altitude performance, basically the heavies fall into two groups. Those that can perform at 8,202 feet with a service ceiling of 14,764 feet, and those that can't. It's perfectly adequate altitude performance, but you're not going to escape from many of the heavies by trying to fly away from them at high distance or keeping above them. And do keep an eye on this climb rate. It's very poor. You're probably not going to escape even an P.203 chain lightning or a Westland P.206 by trying to climb away from it. You should be getting a picture of how this aircraft performs by now. If we just drop down to the worst in class figures, well, we can see that the cumulative DPS is actually coming in at third worst in class, but that overlooks the fact that you can do a lot of your damage at ranges that the other aircraft can't. And indeed, I'll be recommending that that's exactly what you do. Ordnance we can skip over. This is a pure air superiority fighter, as I've said. Survivability, I mentioned that all the figures were compressed, and even the 65, which was best in class above, is now showing as second worst in class because all of this figure compression. You've got 600 hit points, decent slab, but as ever in World of Warplanes, if you start getting hit by something with good DPS, that's not going to go very far. Airspeed, I'll just emphasise the point. Here we go, worst in class cruise speed. And the dive speed is second worst in class. So bear that in mind, and as it's a heavy, you will probably want to do as much as you can to try and improve the speed of this aircraft. Manoeuvrability, just ramming home the point, worst in class, and the roll rate is worst in class, and the maximum optimum speed is worst in class as well. So on the face of it, you could think this is a sluggish aircraft. And when it comes to altitude performance, what was best in class also turns out to be second worst in class as well. Again, showing that the altitude performance of all the heavies is fairly compressed at Tier 8. So, where does this leave this aircraft? Well, I've used the phrase air superiority fighter twice. It's best kept mostly horizontal. It's best taking on things like bombers, ground attackers if you happen to go down at the right opportunity to take them, and it's best at taking those on at distance where they can't shoot you with their rear guns because of this excellent range on the 30mm cannons and this very useful range on the 15mm machine guns. As far as other heavies are concerned, you can probably deter them in head-ons because you can start doing damage to them before they start doing damage to you, but what you don't want to do is try and turn with them. And basically you'll find that any human piloted heavy may very well give you quite a hard time when you're in this aircraft unless you plan where you're going and what you're doing very carefully. Right, so air superiority fighter. Let's go and see how I've set mine up. Here we are back on the tarmac with the P.203, and the first thing to say is that my instance of it is specialised, which means I have all of the equipment and consumable slots available. Let's go and see what you would be missing when you first acquired the aircraft. Pop it into stock configuration, and there you can see that you're missing one of the engine slots and also the turret slot on the consumables. So you should be able to set this aircraft up pretty well right from the moment you acquire it. Let's pop it back into specialist configuration and see what we've actually done. No surprises in the cockpit slot. We've got the gun sight for improved accuracy, although I should point out something I didn't highlight in the numbers section. The accuracy of these weapons is really good. The dispersion angles on all three weapons groups are very low, which means that you don't need necessarily to focus that hard on accuracy, which is a little bit unusual for some of the heavies, and that gives you a little bit more flexibility when it comes to pilot skills, as we'll discuss when we get there. I did also mention in the numbers section that you will be wanting to work on speed, so there will be no surprises that I've picked a polished skin for the airframe slot. I haven't actually got this up at ultimate level yet, but we have the advanced high-speed gas turbine, which is an injection or boost system. And when I have it at ultimate level, I'm going to make sure I pick off or reassemble to get that second to last bonus characteristic, which is currently locked, which is a plus 5% boost availability. And that's because the high-speed gas turbine reduces the amount of boost that you've got. And I'll just show you that now. 40 seconds is standard, and currently I'm on 35, so I should be able to get that back up to 37. The next choice you could put up on the uprated engine. However, I like to spend a little bit of time on target if I can, and therefore I've put on the lightweight power unit. I think it's more important to deal damage to aircraft rather than be able to improve the cruise speed for this plane, and therefore I've opted for this piece of equipment rather than the uprated engine, and that also incidentally allows me to avoid the increased fire risk that an uprated engine brings. When it comes to the forward firing weapon, I think all three of these choices have their positives and negatives. Now, I've gone for reinforced bolt carriers. Basically, I want to be able to fire for as long as I can and do as much damage as I can, and the theory is that that will help me win my engagements. Now, you could equally argue that if you can hit at longer distance, the long-range barrels are a good choice. You could also argue that pumping out shots more quickly is also a good choice, but I don't like the negative effect on fire accuracy of the gas-operated action in this particular case, and that's because of the choices I would be making on my pilot skills, which, as I've said, we'll discuss in a moment. And I don't like the loss of burst length that the long gun barrels produces. However, the choice here will very much reflect what you prefer to do. When it comes to consumables, I've got a fairly high fire resistance on the aircraft, which hasn't been denuded by the use of an uprated engine. Therefore, it's the first aid dressing kit, particularly useful since there are two crew members and thus more or less double the chance of losing one of them to injury. Unsurprisingly, I've mounted engine cooling to give me 10 seconds of extra boost on top of what would be a full complement of 40 seconds. And then I've added the improved mixture control in order to improve the engine thrust and cruise speed. Universal ammunition in both cases on the forward firing weapons and the turrets. I don't use gold, as you know. So that brings us to skills on the pilot, and of course this is a crew trainer. Some of you may choose to try and build a pilot specifically for this plane. I'm still using it as a crew trainer. I've also taken advantage of Charlotte von Stauffen, one of the special female pilots. So let's just discuss what skills she brings to the party, and it's particularly this one that I like. In a head-on attack, the pilot fires at the most vulnerable sections of an enemy aircraft, improves the chance of causing critical damage to an enemy aircraft and setting it on fire, and increases the damage. Now, I've mentioned that you're not going to outmaneuver, probably, enemy heavies, particularly those piloted by humans. So if you get into a head-on with them, you're going to want to do as much as possible to them and leave them in a highly damaged condition as they fly past you, if indeed you haven't destroyed them. So this is a really good skill. I'm not really sure that Dazzling Star is that useful. You can see aircraft 40% sooner, and you're seen a little bit later. But if you don't have Charlotte von Stauben, or you do but you don't want to use her, then I would probably recommend that you build your pilot or have a pilot that has aerodynamics expert first. And then, because of the inherent accuracy of the weapons, and because I'm using a gun sight, I'll probably concentrate on Engine Guru 1 and then building to Engine Guru 2 and ignore Marksman 1 and Marksman 2 until much later. In fact, I may even go for Engine Guru 1, Engine Guru 2 and then Resilience, since that's a really useful skill as well. And that's all because of the inherent accuracy of the weapons. Bear that in mind. Okay, I think that's enough on how I've set up the aircraft. There are some other options there which you can consider. Let's go and see how it performs in battle. So the map for the forthcoming battle is Alpine Gambit. It's the collision variant. It's a 5-sector map. It's a very squashed 5 spots of the die shape. And centrally we have the strategically important military base, and therefore, of course, tactically important because it provides easy access to the other sectors. And just to refresh our memory, a military base launches rocket strikes against enemy sectors and tries to flip them to your side. On one axis, at either end, we have repair air bases. As far as spawning is concerned, that's probably not so useful because it's not central. However, you can replace your aircraft with a different one if you want to, of the same tier, if you're destroyed. And you can fully repair your aircraft provided the maintenance shed hasn't been destroyed, and of course you own the sector. And on the other axis, at either end, we have a pair of garrisons that convey the standard 3 resources every 5 seconds. So the prime objective for both teams is to seize the military base, try to hold it whilst trying to capture at least 2 of the other sectors in order to secure the win. If we look at the order of battle, we can see that I'm top tier in my BVP.203, and there's only one other human in the game in a BVP 210. So this is, on the face of it, quite an advantageous matchup for me, and I'm not going to pretend that in terms of the tactics against human players, you're going to see a great deal in this battle. What you will see is an awful lot of destructive potential. And you'll also see that my bots conspire against me to try and make it more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Okay, so let's go and see what actually happened. So, as I've already mentioned, you won't learn a great deal about how to counter enemy human players in this particular battle replay, but then it's fairly obvious. You either shoot them when they're not expecting it from behind or from the side at long distance, or you win your head-ons. So, the military base is by far and away the most important sector on this map, so I gain altitude and fly towards it straight away at the start of the battle. We're looking to pick off the enemy, the air defence heavies. As you can see, they're just appearing now. And a lot of damage immediately. Critical hits. And down that goes. The other one is conveniently situated above me, flying fairly slowly. That's not hard to destroy either. Time to look for another target. And my team have already taken this. And that's lulled me into a false sense of security, I should say. The enemy bombers have arrived, and now they're trying to escape. Well, fortunately with this long-range weaponry, even a B-32... a bot one anyway, is not going to worry me. Before it can get most of its weaponry aimed at me, I've destroyed it. Trying to deter the heavy, which is a F7F Tiger Cat, by shooting at it. I take a chance on trying to turn with it. That's the wrong thing to do, it turns with me, so I then choose to fly away, and whilst I do that, the Yak 9RU offers himself up and I destroy that. Have a few pot shots at the ME-262, which is actually within range, and land a few shots. And then as it dives away, realising it could probably escape from me, I decide to attack the F7F, which is in the same vicinity. And that probably can't escape from me, and indeed doesn't. Turn to face the ME-262, which would turn around to try and engage me. Because it's got its tail and its wing out, I decide to turn with it. It's a bot after all. I am being attacked by something else though, which is inconvenient. Rear gunner is trying to deter it. Engine has gone. I was using the manual control on the rear turret at this point, which isn't reflected in the replay unfortunately. And I was able to actually shake it off. I've flown into the side of the map, so I had to wait until it came back under control. The ME-209, it turns out to be, that was shooting me, and I destroy that for its impertinence. And that's when I realised that my bots are having a picnic, and that we're 3 sectors to 1 down, and we've very nearly lost the military base. I had rather assumed that we were in control of this battle whilst I was busy with the heavies, and I now realise that I need to do more of what I should be doing, just getting rid of enemy heavies and enemy bombers and enemy ground attackers as fast as possible, and I'm in the wrong part of the map for it, and at the moment things are looking quite tricky. Whilst I'm here, I'm going to try and take this sector, which I do by shooting down that air defence aircraft, but as I do, we lose the military base. I can't afford to get stuck here. I must go back and try and take that as soon as possible, and therefore I ignore the heavy that's just flown off to my right. And at this point I was actually feeling quite surprised and in fact quite concerned as well. The ME-262 has a few futile shots at me. Because he was diving, I decided to turn and just about keep up with, make the turn in time to be able to put a couple of shots into him. If that had been a human with a little bit of manoeuvrability in his build, I probably wouldn't have made that. Just be aware of that. Might have been better just to fly straight on and come back and head him up. My team have managed to take the airfield, so it's 3-2, and it's too early to panic, but I can't afford to let the ME-262 go. I must put him down, otherwise he will turn and keep on coming for me. Unfortunately that allows something to get behind me. And I'm being pursued by it as well. It's a multi-roll. Now, we all know that bot multi-rolls, once they latch on, usually don't let go. So I have to use my boost to get away from it. I'm still a long way away from where I wanted to be, which is the military base. And now we're 4 sectors to 1 down. It's getting worse by the moment. I have to try and get in and do something about this military base. I have managed to escape from the bot. But I have also used up most of my boost, so that advantage is now gone for the moment. Finish off the AC-9, and fortunately that flips the military base to us. The Tiger Cat flies obligingly in front of me. I finish that off. The ME-262 does the same, but again I'm being attacked from behind, and this time I'm not going to survive. I spawned at the airbase because I knew that there were enemy aircraft I could take on there, and I'm thinking ahead to possibly having to win this battle by shooting down all of the enemy combat group. Bombers are leaving the airfield, so is the ground attacker. I decided to take the ground attacker first. This will be a good kill, and this is what I should have been doing probably earlier in the battle so that we didn't lose the military base. Fortunately my team have managed to turn it around to 3-2 now. I can keep killing the ground attackers and bombers, and we keep this kind of advantage. We should be able to redress the balance. Just need to keep an eye on the fighter, also the heavy, and that ME-209A gave me a hard time earlier, so I want to make sure that he doesn't do so a second time. A couple of good hits, he begins to do the spiral of death, and I finish him off. Now looking for the ground attacker again. significant damage at long range, more damage as all of the weapons come to bear and the Grand Attacker goes down. And now by doing more of my job at this period of the battle and stopping the Grand Attackers and bombers from being able to do theirs on the enemy side, we've begun to get control of this battle. Extreme range, shoot at the F7F. I do land get some damage on it, although I don't get the kill. And now I feel that with the scoreline up, it is definitely time to take out the enemy B-32. And there he goes. He won't be coming back. And once we start removing the ground attacking capability of the enemy team, given that we're now 4 sectors to 1 up, the game feels a lot more secure to me. Next up, the IL-8 ground attacker. I'm hoping we can even save this sector. And as it turns out, it's on very low health, so it's very easy to kill, and that allows me to save the sector as a bonus. Swing towards the only sector that the enemy now possesses, which is the airfield. Keeping an eye on what's going on. Swing towards the heavy. And that gaggle of 3 aircraft are the ones that I wanted to address. Think about attacking the sector, and then realise that for the first time the enemy multi-role has appeared, and that's the human player. And probably he was thinking, I've got you head on, I will destroy you with my... oh, where's my aircraft gone? I didn't even get to fire my rockets. This is probably one of the few aircraft a BVP-210 should not go head on with, even if it has a full complement of rockets, because this will start damaging it long before you can fire those rockets off. The ME-262 swings in front of me, I'm able to take that down. Hero of the Sky badge goes through. It's now 3 sectors to do, but most of the enemy's capability for taking sectors has gone. In fact, they only have 2 aircraft left, and a surprisingly hard-fought victory is now in prospect. Fly towards the enemy air base in order to try and pick up some more damage. I can only see air defence aircraft. Try to pick out which one I'm going to be able to shoot first. Now I'm in range. Big hit there straight away, and that takes down that aircraft. That's the ace that goes through. Take down another one, and we flip the base 4-1, and now I'm confident that the game is won. So what you've been able to see is just how destructive the weaponry is on this, and it feels a lot better than its nominal numbers would suggest to you, and it's all because of that range. Those 30mm are extremely accurate. You have a decent burst length of 8 seconds. What's not to like?
Almost all enemy aircraft are destroyed.
I don't manage to get to the last aircraft in time. We end up with 19,500 personal points, an ace, a winged legend, a Khosrow dub, and a hero of the sky. But a game that was much closer than I expected it to be. So, let's take a look at the outcome of this battle, and as we can see from the centre, it's a 5 chevron battle, or a grade 1 heavy fighter if you prefer, with 372,574 credits or silver gross, and from that 125,000 or thereabouts came from the premium account bonus. Look in the message box, we can see there was expenses of 4,700 for repairs, and prepaid consumables were used, so no expenses for those. Experience of 12,495 with a premium account bonus accounting for 2,300 of that, and other bonuses from missions accounting for quite a sizable chunk there as well, as you can see. 624 free experience, the first win of the day, times 2. 509 with 115 coming from the premium account bonus. 4 tokens, all for first medals of the day. Khosrow dub, Hero of the Sky, Winged Legend and Ace, and I think that's all of the epic achievements there. Turning to the personal score tab, we can see that the class-specific missions, 2 were complete, 1 wasn't, which reflected how badly the game was going at the start of the battle, as you saw. Nevertheless, I managed to amass enough points for the 5 chevrons. 19,500 personal points, 4 sectors captured, 22 aerial targets destroyed, thus the ace, which comes at 20. Handsome damage to aerial targets of 10,602 with 31 critical hits coming from those cannons. Lost the aircraft once, capture points 460 in total, and that was split 160 for defending and 300 for attacking. Turn to the team score tab. Well, considering there was one human player per side, not surprising that was first by personal points and also by chevrons. And on the other side, pretty decent effort by an unspecialised BVP in probably what he regarded as a fairly unpleasant matchup. And that concludes my look at the Blohm Und Voss BVP.203, an air superiority heavy fighter through and through, a true boom and zoomer, a long-range assassin. Sneak up on enemies and destroy them before they even know you're there with the excellent weaponry, and don't forget it has superb accuracy figures, or win head-on engagements at long distance. Well, I hope you found that useful, and if you did, that you'll come and see my future content. But until then, this is the Noble Q, signing out.